Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the final in a series of webinars that we presented over the years since July of 2023, hosted by the Virginia Minority Business Development Agency's Business Center, which is operated by the Capital Region Minority Supply Development Council, which is managed and run by our president, Sharon R. Pender, who today is unfortunately not with us, but she's out there in Baltimore at the City of Baltimore's annual conference that they're having, spreading the good news about Capital Region. We try to bring these topics to you, and today our host who has graced us with their appearances is going to be the Navy, who I'll introduce here shortly. But, the purpose of the webinars is, one, to help increase awareness and stay abreast of what's going on in the industry across the commercial and the federal government, so that companies can, develop their plans and their strategy in order to grow and sustain their businesses. So we've got a good topic coming for you shortly, but, as they say in the radio land, you got to pay some bills. So I've got some couple of commercials that I got to share with you. Number one, we have a program called the Capital Readiness Program that is run by my colleague Sonia Bigelow-Smith. We're one of 43 entities that was awarded this program by MBDA back in September the 1st. Actually, August the 1st, Vice President Kamala Harris publicly announced that 43 recipients out of 1,000 applicants to help provide technical assistance to companies to help increase their financial literacy and improve their chances of securing capital that's needed to do operations of their business, both on a day-to-day basis and long-term business strategies. So the Capital Readiness Program run by Sonia provides that technical assistance, and we partnered with some higher educational institutions across the region that we're responsible for, which includes Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. So we work with Old Dominion University down in Hampton Roads, Virginia State University in Central Virginia, University of Maryland Global Campus in Maryland. In fact, they initiated a cohort on the 16th of May with about 20 business owners that taken through an intense program that they will come out, with more key nuggets to put in their kit bags in order to help their businesses. And each of these programs is a certificate producing program signed off by the university. And so that's what's happening in the region here. And ODU has run two cohorts focused on women businesses in particular since February. That's a total of 30 women business owners that have been trained on behalf of the Department of Commerce, executed by the Capital Region and our Capital Readiness Program. And Virginia State themselves we had a cohort there with about 40 to 50 folks in it that were being trained. It's open to any business. If you go to crmsdc.org's website, which has a link to our Capital Readiness website, you can learn more about it. And Sonia Bigelow-Smith and Amanda Bill are the two people that are running for us. The center itself, we've been successful this year so far, and last year we were recognized for last year's performance about a week ago. MBDA recognizes what they call their Century Club winners, and that's everyone that is rated out at 100 or a score of 100 or more. And with the help of our clients and the staff and the consultants that we have, Tracy Wiley, Alice Williams, Owen Jackson. Of course, without Claudia, we couldn't do this as a team effort. And so we were recognized last week. In fact, I got the weeks right in Miami at the National Training Organization. And I see my colleague Sonia put her information in the chat. Definitely reach out to her, and she can tell you much more than I can about CRP, as we call it. And we're looking for folks to participate in the programs. And oh, by the way, if I didn't say it, the training is free, out of your pocket, no dollars out of your pocket, but we need your time and your attention if you get selected to participate. And then we have coming Monday, June the 17th, on Bowie State's campus at their Student Center, our annual Super Matchmaker Conference that is hosted annually by our president and our board of directors. And this year, the added feature to it is that we're going to put on a, led by Sonia, a MBDA Capital Readiness Summit as a part of the Super Matchmaker Conference. Super Matchmaking itself is where our corporate sponsors, along with our minority business enterprises, we have over 700 gather, and there's professional development training, and there's hands-on networking with both business to business, business to government, business to commercial, and now business to capital readiness. And so Sonia will actually have, we'll have corporate roundtables, and then we'll also have a setup where Sonia will be leading the Capital Readiness Summit, open to the public. You don't have to be certified by our council to attend. There's a cost. Currently, I think it's still open till midnight tonight. If you are a certified MBE and you're on here and you hadn't got that information yet, it's $150 based on a discount. And if you're a non-certified MBE, which is Minority Business Enterprises, is $175. Tickets are going fast. Again, it's going to be at Bowie State, and Claudia just put the link in the chat. And I think we have a flyer on it that is posted, and hopefully we'll be able to show that at the end, and you can see our guest speakers are Dr. Anaban Basu, who is who was the chairman and CEO of Sage Policy Group and a top economist, and talks about how the impacts that the things that are happening in our economy affect, minority businesses in particular. And then Taurus Richardson, who's the founder and CEO of IBM Partners, is also one of our guest speakers, and he's a business owner that will share about his success or his formula, actually, that has brought his success on growing your business through acquisitions. So there's the hard work of going through contracts. There's also through acquisitions. And so Taurus will talk to us about that. Okay. And that's the free announcements, and hopefully you get some benefits out of those. Again, I want to welcome you on behalf of Sharon R. Pender, and it is definitely my pleasure to introduce our guest today, who is actually standing in for her boss, who's a good friend of mine, Miss Arvise Washington, who is the Department of Navy's executive director for small business programs. And Arvise and I have worked together for several years. And today, on her behalf, I'll ask Miss Patrice Jones to come on screen. Welcome, Patrice.
Thank you.
We know it's right after lunch, and I did not eat yet, and I don't think Patrice did, so we won't fall asleep on you. And we do this so that the West Coast guys and those folks in Hawaii, that just starting to get up, can get this good news. I told her I would not eulogize her backstage, but I do have to tell you a little bit about it, because you always want to know who's talking to you. We got the first team from the Navy that's representing the Secretary of the Navy, Ms. Jones. She's the Chief of Staff of Department of Navy's small business programs. And she brings with her a wealth of knowledge and experience, and she doesn't know this because I didn't tell her. But after you read people's bio, stuff starts popping out. She came from Health and Human Services. Now, in Health and Human Services, there's a whole network of us. Ms. Katrina Brisbane, who's a senior acquisition person at HHS, and my good friend, and a mentee of mine many years ago, who's rising to the top. And Shannon Jackson, who is the director of small business there. We all grew up together in the great Department of Defense. I got to just put that in there. So So Patrice, thanks very much for coming in and sharing with us, what the Navy, one of the Navy's missionary requirements, how they support their sailors, and the Marines, because we know that for those that don't know, the Marines separate, but a part of the acquisition process falls under the Navy, under the Chief of Staff of the Navy. So Patrice, before we get started, we want to query the crowd that we have out there and find out how many people either currently have Navy contracts or had Navy or Marine contracts before you get into what you're going to share with us. So the poll, please. And it should pop up here any moment now, I believe. There it is. So we're just asking you to tell us, are you currently working on or have received a Navy contract, have past performance with the Navy or the Marines or both? And if you have none, check that one, and you're the people we really want to talk to. I think that you get about 60 seconds to do this. And then we will see the results.
We have about 30 seconds remaining.
30 seconds remaining. That sounds like I'm ready to jump out that airplane I used to do. Stand in the door, you got 30 seconds. Wind's in your face. Jaws are flapping. Okay. Just old soldier reminiscing. All right, results getting ready to come up. Okay. So Patrice, we can see 89% of the folks don't know about the Navy.
Okay.
All righty. Okay. So ma'am, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Marks. I appreciate it and appreciate the opportunity to participate in this webinar and to participate, or rather to close out your series on doing business with the federal agencies, and to talk to the folks on this webinar about doing business with the Department of Navy and ways to become procurement ready, so that you can figure out the tools and what you need to do to research the Department of Navy to find out what we're doing and to take advantage of the opportunity to do business with us, because as we say, the Navy is open for business for small business. So as Mr. Marks indicated, I work for Miss Arvis Washington. She is the director of the Department of Navy Office of Small Business Programs, and our deputy director, Miss Elise Bullock. And so it's my pleasure to talk to you this afternoon and to hopefully get you on your way to doing business with the Department of Navy. Some things I want to tell you about the Department of Navy, just as a overview, and as an also as an FYI, there's a guide in the resources section of this webinar. It's not a presentation per se, because but it is information that's going to help you when this webinar ends to be able to get you on that road to help navigate you to doing business with the Department of Navy. And one of the things I want to share about, in terms of what's going on with the Department of Navy with regard to small business, is I want to share with you that we are serious about giving opportunity to small business. We recognize the importance of small business to our defense industrial base and to our national security, and to the Navy being able to meet its mission. So we want to, our goal or our strategy is to promote a Department of Navy-wide culture that leverages small business as a strategic advantage. And to that end, our priorities is to access to people in terms of educating and developing our workforce, from the small business professional to our program managers, and educating them and helping to form a team of advocates who advocate on behalf of small business. The other thing too is our priority is access to resources. And by resources, a commitment from our office to put as much information out there, critical information about our strategic mission, our goals, and just information and resources and education to help you navigate and to get you started with becoming procurement ready and doing business with the department. The other thing is we have a ethos or a motto that we say small business is the first option. And by that, we mean our commitment to maximizing opportunities and the role of prime or subcontractors for small business. Again, we recognize the importance of small business to our national defense and to us meeting our mission. So it's very important for us to utilize small business. There have been a lot of changes, particularly in the last year, with regard to increasing opportunities for small business. And so we also want to be in step with that, as well as, again, making sure that we maximize small business to help us meet our mission. So from that resource guide, the information that's in there, you can, like I said, have it as a takeaway, but just want to share some information as we're talking about the MBNA from the state of Virginia. I know there's folks from all over, but just to give a little bit of stats in terms of how we performed last year. On page 2 of that resource talks about our overall performance from last year. So at an overall level, the Department of the Navy, which includes Navy and Marine Corps, we obligated in a prime role to small business over $20 billion last fiscal year. So that's $20 billion, or almost 19.5% of our overall budget went to small business. And then within that $20 billion, you know, we have targets, if you will, or goals, and we, the Navy, Department of Navy, met all of the goals that were established for us for fiscal year 23. We just shy of the goal of our small disadvantage target. But another point is that last year was a record-breaking year for us in terms of dollars spent or our business spend. We exceeded the amount of money obligated to small business as prime contractors in all socioeconomic categories. And in fact, since fiscal year 2018, the Navy has increased its small business execution by 30%. We went from just shy of $15.5 billion in 2018 to over $20 billion in fiscal year 2023. So when I say the Navy is serious about taking advantage of and maximizing opportunities and use of small business or small business utilization, we're serious about it. The other thing just to point out is in the 23, in the Washington, D.C. metro area, vendors who are headquartered in the D.C. metro area, last year, we awarded $17.5 billion to small business. And you'll see that in the chart. And in FY23 in the Norfolk, the other big area in the state of Virginia, for companies headquartered in the state of Virginia, in the Norfolk region, last year, we awarded $6.9 billion to small business.
That's great. That's great. So we know there is work out there. There's opportunity, is what that says. And clearly, you know, you got to know where it's at to go and get it. And so definitely appreciate that data and the information that you provide, and we'll ensure that the folks that hear will get that. So Patrice, we got a few questions that we want to ask, and then and I'll tell the folks in the crowd, you can put your question, you can put questions in the chat, in the Q&A chat, and our folks, we will get to as many of those as we can. But the plan is to try to engage what you're asking us. But I'll start off with can you share, and you started, and you have shared some of it about your FY24 priorities for the department. And we know it's not all about goals. It's about the right companies supporting the mission requirement in order to so the Navy can meet its mission. So can you share a little bit of that?
Yes. So I'll say from the Department of the Navy, from SecNav have, and we are in sync with enduring priorities that the SecNav has set for the Navy, and that's strengthening our maritime dominance, building a culture of warfighting excellence, and enhancing our strategic partnerships. So the Secretary continually reiterates the future of the Navy hinges on modernization and readiness of our fleet today. When most people think about the defense industrial base, they really think about the prime contracts who build the ships, the aircraft, and the ground system, the big companies. But we recognize, as you know, as well as the Secretary recognized, that in order to maintain our technological advantage, we have to deliver innovation and capability to the warfighter faster. And in that, we need to tap into the tremendous opportunity that exists on the other end of the spectrum, and that's with our small businesses. We know that whether it's in the high-tech small businesses or those that are building like the unmanned systems, or those, whether they specialize in AI, data analysis, or provide us, in terms of professional services, that there is a lot of innovation and a lot of expertise that exists on that other side of the spectrum with small businesses. So at Don OSBP, our vision, mission, and strategy are all aligned with SecNav's those enduring priorities. And one way we align our actions with the SecNav is and that enhancing our strategic partnerships. And we view webinars such as this, talking to small businesses and partnering with MBDA as well as others, other organizations, as an opportunity to help us meet those goals and our priorities for the department. Some examples, of course, this webinar, Miss Washington just came back from a summit down in the Norfolk area over the past week. Our deputy, as well as another person on our team, was at a National 8A conference up in Alaska. So there is outreach is incredibly important to the Department of Navy. Not just outreach in terms of the folks in our office, but outreach across the Department of Navy enterprise with the small business directors that are at those 10 buying organizations. There's an entire team of small business professionals dedicated to helping to achieve our mission and our priorities. And one of the things is that we also participate in what's called Navy Weeks. We partner with the Navy community. It's a community outreach group that go across the country, different cities across the country, because the message is the Navy's not just doing business on the coast where a ship can pull in, but the Navy's doing business in every state in the country. And we want to make sure that those businesses in those areas throughout the country are aware that the Navy's open for business. And so we take that opportunity to go with the Navy Community Outreach Office. We do a small business workshop. It could be someone from our office who attend, or like I said, one of the other small business directors at those 10 buying organizations. And the idea is to educate small businesses on how to do business with the Department of the Navy. In terms of our priorities for 24, I think most of us are aware of the executive order that came out, the 985, advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. And so the goal of a Fed-wide small disadvantaged business goal of 13% in 24 and targeting that 15% in 25, we are working in 24 as well as 25 to be prepared to try to meet those goals. One of the things and one of the other initiatives under there is building small business utilization through SES performance plans. So one of the things that the Secretary of the Navy did last year, in April of 2023, was to institute a requirement that assigns a senior executive at each of those 10 buying organizations as the small business champion at that activity. And the role of that small business champion is to help negotiate those targets that come on down from at the DoD level, come from small SBA to DoD down to us, to be involved in negotiating those targets for their organization. That small business champion is also charged with looking at ways to disaggregate contracts, disaggregate in terms of if things can be, some of those bigger contracts can be broken apart that doesn't risk the program or the mission, and look to see if there are opportunities for small disadvantaged to play a role in those requirements. The other thing that that small business champion has been tasked to do is when something comes up, a requirement comes up that looks like bundling or consolidation, that senior executive person at that activity is supposed to look at that to see if there's another way so that it does not bundled or consolidated in a way to take business away from small business. So those are some of the things that started last year in 23, as well as, one of the things that is remarkable about the Department of the Navy is just how much senior leadership, the Secretary of the Navy, is involved in making sure that small businesses have every opportunity to play a part, to play a role in the Navy executing its mission. When I say that the Secretary of the Navy, when he goes on a lot of different trips and also attend events with us, he wants to do a roundtable meeting with small business, hearing from them what are some of the challenges, what are some of the things that we in the Department of Navy can do to help them become procurement ready. It's incredible. Not just, he set the tone for doing these roundtables, but it's not just the secretary. It's also the assistant secretary for procurement, acquisition, and development. He attended a small business roundtable in New York City with Miss Washington just earlier this month. So when I say it's important for the Department of the Navy to ensure that small businesses have access and an opportunity, it's important. Again, that goes back to some of our goals and priorities in 24 as we, move to meet some of the, objectives in that executive order, but also recognizing that the Department of the Navy needs to bring along small business if we are going to be able to meet our mission.
Okay. So, we had, the survey had is like 89% of the folks have not done work with the Navy. And so, and I know a lot of folks, some of the questions in the chat, we'll get to them, but what's the best way to go about that, understanding that the Navy has 10 different buying commands that support their mission, and you have specialists in those, and I always seek to try to get an advocate, on my side. What's the best way to go about getting to those commands, to get after those command requirements to help them out with their mission?
So if you're a small business looking for contracting opportunities with the Navy, for the first time, or even for that, I think it was maybe 4% or something, who's looking
Right.
maybe for a follow-on contract with the Department of the Navy, is you've got to do the homework. You've got to figure out, you got to know the mission of the Department of the Navy. I told you, right? The SECNAV's enduring priorities. You've got to know what's the Navy's mission, what are they trying to do, and then what is your expertise? What's your niche? What's the NATES code or the product service code that you have capability in? So you want to prepare your capability statement, know what be ready in terms of, are you registered in SAM.gov? Do you know what your NATES code, product service code is? Have you tapped into the Small Business Administration, or are you a certified program? Do you have your certifications through SBA? So you want to have those things done first, and then you want to look at those 10 buying activities, because each of the Navy's 10 buying organizations have a mission, have a role, right? So if your area of expertise relates to ships, or supporting the a manufacturer, or something with shipping or repairing, then you need to know that if it's ships, carriers, and submarines, it's NAVC, Naval Sea Systems Command. If what you're doing is related to aviation, aircraft, then or all things related to aviation, that's Naval Air Systems Command. If it's supporting ground equipment, tanks, ground radars, or any type of engineering support or the like associated with that, then it's the Marine Corps. So you got to know, of those 10 buying organizations, what is their mission and the overall mission of the Department of Navy. And you can go to our website. On the resources that I gave you is a link to Don OSBP's website. Also in the guide that I gave you gives you a little blurb of those 10 organizations and what their mission is. You've got to know what their mission is. You've got to figure out, and there's also documentation on our website that will tell you what were the top 5 NATES codes. Where did these 10 organizations spend their money last year? There's a QR code on our website that says, search what the Don buys, right? So once you figured out what's the overall Navy's mission, what's the mission of those 10 organizations, and where do you fall, what's your capability, then you can do a search to say, what has the Navy bought in the last couple of years? Search what the Don buys. You can search by NATES code, and you can figure out, okay, as an example, my NATES code is this, engineering services, right? Well, let's see which of those 10 buying organizations. Well, likely all 10 buying organizations are buying engineering services. If that is what it is, then you just you try to figure out which one of those missions align more with maybe what you're doing, right? If it's engineering services or something like that. I would say don't try and bite off all 10. I would focus on one of them, right? Or maybe 2 of them, if that's what you would do. But you can definitely use the resources on our website to look to see what we bought in recent years. And there's also a tool on there that we talk about. It's called the Long Range Acquisition Estimate. We do a long range acquisition estimate each fiscal year. It gives you an idea of what each of those 10 activities are going to buy for the year. What are their requirements for fiscal year 24? That's the information that's on our website right now. What are they going to do? What are the requirements for fiscal year 24? That spreadsheet by activity, it's not one lump, it's by activity. You can search by NATES code and say, okay, this is my, engineering services. That's my NATES code. I just want to do a search on that. You can say, what's a new requirement? What's a follow-on requirement? Is this sole source? Is this going to be competed? It's going to give you that information as well as a point of contact. So one of the first things you have to do is do your homework and do the research and see where is their opportunity still remaining this fiscal year, right? The money, I would say budget came in late this year, right? So a lot of those requirements shifted some to the right, and we've got the end of the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter. The 4th quarter typically is the busiest quarter, right? So there's information on those spreadsheets that give you an idea of what's still to go, or what what the requirements were for fiscal year 24. And then Once you do that homework, do the resource, then you've got to engage with that small business professional at those activities. So if it's, I'll stick with NAVC. If it's NAVC, you know, the information that I provide is going to give you a point of contact at NAVC. That's where you start to do the network and try to form the relationship with the small business professional at that activity. And it's great when you reach out and say, I'd like to talk to you about my capability, to say to them, I have looked at your long range acquisition estimate, and there are things on there that I saw that I would be interested in, and I would like to share my capabilities with you. And that's kind of the starting point to building that conversation and that relationship. The other thing you want to do is you want to participate in webinars such as this, where you're getting information and educating yourself on the Department of the Navy, and also to reach out to those activities to see if there's an industry day and what events that they have plans, conferences where you can meet more people and engage and again, start to build that relationship and prepare your elevator pitch. If you have an opportunity at a conference and you meet that small business director, you want to have your best elevator pitch to talk to that director or somebody on that team. You want to reach out. I do, and the folks in my office, and I know at those buying activities, I do a one-on-one with small business, probably 3 or 4, sometimes more a week. So we are doing one-on-ones and trying to get information out. When I talk to some companies who have certain, capability, and I think, after talking to them, it sounds like you're more fit for NAVC or for NAVAIR, that I will set them in contact with somebody from that activity so that they can start to engage and build that relationship with that activity. The other thing, and the last thing I'll say, is be persistent. I talked to one gentleman a few months ago that it seemed literally like it happened. The stars were perfectly aligned. It was wonderful to hear how he got his first contract with the Department of Navy, with Naval Supply Systems Command, and now he's on his third, right, that he's gotten. But his story was responding to an RFI, right? They liked him, direct award to this gentleman, and he's gotten others since then based on how well he's performing. And, and so it's just been wonderful. But for most folks, it's not going to happen that way. So you've got to be persistent. You just have to be persistent.
Oops, we got about 13 questions in the Q&A chat. And so let's check some of those out. I looked at them. They sent around wanting to get a meeting with your big boss, right? Everybody wants to do that. And then also, I think you covered some of them about how to do business with the Navy. And I think you're spot on that you have to do research. We don't have a polling question for this, but if we had asked this question, how many people have done research on the Navy and know where you want to go? Because it's not about just show up at the door and you're going to get a contract with any one of these organizations. You have to do homework. So Claudia or Alice, whoever's driving those questions, let us know.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Ms. Jones. Mr. Marks mentioned a few minutes ago about getting meetings with your boss, Ms. Washington. There are several people in the chat or the Q&A that's interested in setting up meetings with you or Ms. Washington. How do you make that happen?
You can send in a request to Ms. Washington, and some she take, but as you can imagine, she is very busy. When I say that our office is involved in outreach, I mean we're really involved in outreach. So you can send it in. You can either emailed the request to me, because what we're as Ms. Washington liked to say, we're a small office, but we're a mighty office, right? So when a request comes into her and with her schedule, typically for one-on-one to help companies acclimate and learn more, right? It's what do you call it? A whole of done OSBP approach. So we all meet with companies and do one-on-ones. So whether you will have an opportunity to talk to Ms. Washington and that one-on-one, I'm not sure, but definitely it will be myself or somebody else on the Navy team, because our whole focus is helping to get you the tools that you need to get you started on that journey. And as Mr. Mark says, it really is about doing the homework, right? So if it's to help you further learn how to navigate that process of how do you find out what the requirements are, what's going on, what's the mission, how do you fit your capabilities, happy to have that one-on-one discussion with you. So what I can do is, yes, the public affairs is one way to do it, that email address. You can also send let me see if I can put something in the chat. But public affairs is one way to do it. You can do it that way. I was going to say you can send me an email. It's a yep, that's it.
Claudia,
There it is.
Claudia's
Yeah.
on it.
So
There you go.
you send me an email and then we typically do, like I said, one-on-ones. It's about a 30-minute discussion, and it's to further help you try and get started on the process, right? To get started. Because I will tell, and what we'll do is to try and say, like I said, sometimes it's seeing your capability statement, seeing what your expertise is, and then looking at those 10 organizations to say, I think if you're going to start with maybe this one is the one you should consider starting with. You can pick any of the 10, but just based on what I see as your capability, like as an example, if your is facilities, construction related, well, then it's all going to go to Naval Facilities Engineering Command, right? If your experience is training or helping to do training, depending on what that type training it is, it could be with, I call them the care and feeding organizations of the Department of the Navy. That's Naval Supply Systems Command. If it's not getting a platform out and it's financial services or the like, typically that care and feeding of the Navy is going to be Naval Supply Systems Command. If it's that care and feeding of the Marine Corps, it's going to be Marine Corps Headquarters Installation and Logistics, right? If you're talking, you do support for, ground or sort of engineering certain to platforms or the like, well, then you might want to talk to one of those other activities. So it really is your capability. What have you performed, and kind of where you want to do that entree into doing business with the Navy. We have some great videos, webinars on YouTube for becoming procurement ready. It's 8 steps to make sure you can check the box. I'm registered in SAM. I got my certification. I am in Dynamic Small Business, the tool.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Right.
done all of those things. Now I need to know, what does the Navy buy? Let me go back and look at history. Here's the NAICS code. How much money? Who spent it where? Right? That's history. Now I'm going to go to this fiscal year. I want to see what, the NAICS code that I operate in, or the Product Service Code, which of those activities. And so you start from there. But at the same time, all of these activities have website and information. You've got to do the homework. You got to know what they buy, where they are, right? What they're doing when you start to target an activity. So you got to have more insight as to what's going on, because the more of that and the more that you've educated yourself and you know what's going on and you are aware, when you're talking to that small business professional, or you have an opportunity to talk to that program person, you have some insight into the Navy, and you are better able to help them or to show them that that you can help.
Yep. So, and I just say this. I mean, we talk with folks all the time. I want to do business with the Navy. That's a big elephant. And that's why it's important to do homework, because you get one shot to have a meeting with RV's Washington. And she is just with your capability statement, because we can pull your capability statement off your website if you got to post it and you really want to do business, but you want to go with a solution at hand based on a mission requirement that somebody, one of those 10 buying commands has, and you know you're the best one in the world to do that job. And that's how you really utilize that opportunity when you get that one-on-one with any one of the folks that's trying to advocate for you. So, Alice?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Jones, we have a question about FedRAMP. Are you prepared to discuss FedRAMP at all today?
I don't really have much. I'd have to maybe take the question and I have to go back and do some research.
Very good. Thank you so
Okay.
much. The next question, there's a gentleman that the company is A&A Premium Paint Distributor. He distributes paints and coating from all major manufacturers. A rep from PPG, I think that may be one of your buying agencies. I'm not familiar with the term. Pretty much said that he would not be able to sell his product to that organization for shipping. He likes to know, how can the Navy help him sell his product?
Is he like a reseller?
So Patrice, I saw that question, right? And I believe, that question, PPG is Pittsburgh, I believe Pittsburgh Paint and Glass.
Okay.
The big paint manufacturer, in the world out of Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And obviously they do military stuff too. So this gentleman is trying to get it. He does painting. So he had to, I think it's probably a better question that's taken offline, because the question is pretty detailed, and I read it myself before we started. And it's really about PPG. A PPG rep, I believe, the way I read that, told him that they would never buy his paints because I'm sure PPG has a contract with the Navy or one of the shipyards that actually does the Navy work, right? Like, Huntington Ingalls,
Exactly.
Newport News, those guys. But sir, I think his name is Alfred, if I'm not mistaken, Alice.
Yes.
I would recommend we take that one offline.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Next question. We're a subcontractor on Seaport NXG.
Mhm.
Are we able to go after RFPs and RFQs as a prime?
Do you, you can go as a prime if you have an actual, you're a contract holder, if you hold a contract. And I do know that that Seaport had on-ramp. On-ramp means that it's an opportunity where they're adding more contractors, and that was open. So I'm not sure where they are in the process, but they just recently was in the process of doing an on-ramp, accepting proposals to add more contractors to Seaport E, an on-ramp. Another thing that changed too for this next round of on-ramping is that previously or currently you had to have Department of Navy past performance. With this on-ramping, they're opening up to DoD past performance. So that's a good thing, because it will allow more companies who may have had an agreement with them, but did not actually have any work yet, but they had, let's say, DoD experience. So now you'll be able to use that DoD experience. So I would, I can find out where they are in the process and then share that information with MBDA or can send it to this individual if I have their email address as to where Naval Sea Systems Command is in that process with
Okay.
Seaport.
All right.
Thank you so much. There is a private question in the chat. I'm going to reserve that question for offline. And that question was from Ms. Gladys Bustos. The next question I have is from David Selman. He wants to know, are there any specific requirements small businesses can go after? You talked generically about there are opportunities. So where can he find open opportunities for the Navy?
So, it's going to be published, sam.gov, but as I spoke, we on our website, and I believe, yes, one of the slides and the resource that's posted in the resource section talks about the Navy Long Range Acquisition Estimate. There's a QR code there. You pull up that code, it's going to show you a page with all 10 of the Navy activities. And if you click on it individually, it's going to share with you their long range acquisition estimate. That's an Excel sheet that tells you all the requirements at the time they, which would have been late December, early January. Most of the activities will update this document at least twice a year. Some do it more than that. It's the requirements that they see for the Navy fiscal year 24. So if you're looking to see if the Navy has what the Navy requirements are for this fiscal year in your NATES code, you can search that document and figure out what the requirements were. You'd have to reach out to the point of contact that's given to you on that spreadsheet to see where they are in the process. That was in December, January timeframe. Some of those could have already released an RFP or a request for information, may already be on contract, but not everything's going to be on contract, right? Because this is their forecast for the entirety of fiscal year 24. And so we publish forecasts like this every fiscal year in the December to January timeframe to give companies a heads up on opportunities within those 10 organizations. And when I say 10 organizations, you have to just keep this in mind. As an example, Naval Sea Systems is at the Washington Navy Yard headquarters. They have requirements, but it's a kind of like a matrix organization, right? That headquarter organization have 22 field offices.
There you go.
And those field offices are across the U.S. From right here in the Virginia area, there's Carter Rock and Dahlgren. There's Indian Head in Maryland. There's so many with NAVCI, but all of that information with regard to even their requirements is on that spreadsheet because they're going to roll it up and put it in one location, their long range acquisition forecast. So you might see something that says there's a requirement for Naval Sea Systems Command, but it's really for their field office out in Point Hueneme, California, right?
Right.
It's still
Absolutely.
NAVC, but it's a field activity. They all have requirements. They all have requirements. In fact, to be upfront, our office, Don OSBP, we have no requirements, right? We set the policy, we monitor how these 10 organizations' activities are, how are they performing through the course of the fiscal year? Where are we going to be? Where do they need help? Who can we send their way when we meet with people that maybe they're looking for a woman-owned small business or a small disadvantaged business or veteran-owned. We meet with these folks that have certain capability. We share that information with those small business directors, right? But the requirements and the funds are with those 10 organizations and all of those organizations that flow down from them, right? So when I talked earlier, about the Hampton Roads area, right? So Norfolk, the shipyard down and all those activities. There's Marine Corps field offices down there. There's NAVSUP has their Fleet Logistics Center that's down in the Norfolk area. I mean, there's so many that I can't even name. So there, you know, when you talk about, it's just a lot of those activities with requirements in those areas that's part of doing the research. That's part of going to NAVC's site and saying, okay, here's headquarter NAVC. This is what they're doing. Now, all these other field offices, they all have requirements. They all have a mission that feeds that overall NAVC mission, that feeds the overall Department of Navy mission.
Great example. Great example. You gotta, you know, I came from the Army. They call it M&M, the mission and the money.
Yes.
You gotta know where that's at. And it's not at the headquarters.
No.
Never is at the headquarters. It is down where the rubber meets the road, where the people that execute the mission are. And so if you know that, you know, and take a little bite of that pie, you know, it's amazing how you will grow once you got your foot in the door. So, Alice, I think it's, well, we don't have any more time for questions. It's about 1:59, but what I'm going to tell you is those questions that are in the chat, we will provide those questions to Ms. Jones. She and her staff will have a chance to take a look at it. And if you put your contact information on your question versus anonymous, okay, and I'm saying that because there's some people put anonymous in there. I mean, if you don't want us to know you, that means we can't help you. You know, that's bottom line. So, but if your contact information is there, and you want the person to get back to you, she will. Otherwise, what will happen is, Patrice, when your staff has a chance to look at them, you send those responses back to us. We have all the email addresses that were provided to us during registration. We will send it out to the masses and go from there.
Okay, great. And then that's how we put my email there. So if anybody wants to reach out to have a one-on-one discussion, happy to do that. You know, just reach out to me in an email and we'll get it scheduled, and we'll you know, try and help you navigate and get, like I said, get you started on that path to figuring out what the Navy buys and how you can help. I tell, you know, when I talk to some and recent, it's been quite a few of woman-owned small business, and, you know, and I tell them, you know, set yourself, you know, and tell that command, I'm here to help you. I know you have things that you have to do, and know what it is that they're looking for, what the requirements are, what they're looking for, and put yourself in a position to you know, for that opportunity.
Yep. So, and I would tell you that the Navy is small business friendly. I mean, the current Secretary of the Navy is a former small business owner, owned a company called SBG before he took the appointment from the president to come and be Secretary of the Navy, and had to divest himself of his company to perform his civil duties that he wanted to do. So, in my experience with the Navy, having run the Army's small business office, the Navy has been out front working with small businesses, even though what they buy, what we really see is the ships and the airplanes. But it takes a whole lot of small businesses to make all that stuff take place. So,
Mr. Marks, I know we're over time, but it's just one really good news story.
Please.
There are plenty, but one that because it involves a company down in the Norfolk area. So I don't know if folks know what Mentor Protege program is. There's a slide in there that talks about Mentor Protege program. You can Google it and find out about Mentor Protege program, but it really is helping small businesses to do more business, to sort of meet a need for them, because it meets a need for us. So, success story. Navy didn't have any Mentor Protege agreements in 2021. We've gone from 0 to 11 right now, and we're looking at 5 more by the end of this fiscal year, right? So we're really serious about using that to bring along and bring up small businesses where we have a need in the Navy, and we want to, you know, to give that opportunity to small business to grow the industrial base. So one of our proteges, company out of Norfolk, TST Fab and Machine, they receive a developmental assistance to make them a supplier for electrical workbenches on the new CVN nuclear aircraft carriers. Since the beginning of them starting their protege agreement, which would have been June of 22. So they just started this, right? This agreement in place June of 22. This company has doubled its revenues, have 3 DoD prime contracts and over 100 subcontracts, right? So it's just to say that it is possible, but you know, it's the need, knowing the business, knowing where you can fit in and what you can, how you can help to meet a requirement, to bring a solution or an opportunity, like in this case, that presents itself to grow the industrial base with small businesses. So areas that we're looking at are knowledge-based, manufacturing is huge right now, and R&D, of course. So just a good news story for a company out of the state of Virginia in the Hampton Roads area.
Oh, great plug, great plug. And we will end on just a reiteration that on Monday at Bowie State University at the Student Center, Capital Region will host Super Matchmaker Conference featuring the MBDA, the Minority Business Development Agency. There is the slide, Capital Readiness Summit, June 17th, 8:30 to 3. Come out and join us. We still got a few seats, and the information that's going to be provided, it will be invaluable, I can assure you. So again, thanks for joining us. As always, we couldn't be successful if you didn't. And you got our contact information. The Business Center is www.m as in Mike, B as in boy, D as in David, A as in Apple, dash Virginia spelled out.com. So until next time, see you. Have a great summer. Thanks, Patrice.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.